Hello and welcome again to Jackson Snyder Presents, produced by the Vero Essene Yahad. And we have part two today of Lis Goodwin's testimony. And we enjoyed the first part very much, and I see that so did you. After having several requests for more information on Lis, she decided independently that she would do her testimony as a pendulum dauber. What was that?
It was pendulum dowsing. So it was a form of divination. Very much a no-no.
It sure is. So here's the second part of that testimony. And here we go, Lis.
Great. Well, I'm going to start with a slight TMI warning. So TMI stands for too much information. There are going to be some medical things discussed in this, and I'm sure that the ladies who are going to listen to this show will completely understand what I'm talking about. But for the gentlemen listening, perhaps there might be moments where you think, not so nice. But I'm going to share a couple of testimonies which happened at the same time. They're medical testimonies, which I experienced. And one of the reasons I feel the Lord has really led me to share these two is because these show and indicate the multiple ways in which the Lord works in our lives. And I think it's important for us, as you're listening, try to note all the different ways that the Lord worked in the situation, because there are just so many different ways that he worked. And so I'm just going to start. So I had weakness in my legs, and this had been going on for some months. Weakness kind of in my hips. And I really did not feel good. And I was a great avoider of doctors, not keen on the medical profession. So I was avoiding going to the doctor, and I prayed about it. And the Lord had said, go and see the GP, which I didn't do. So I prayed again and was told again, go and see the GP. And I think the third time when he said, go and see the GP, I actually did make plans and I went to see my GP. So in England, we have the National Health Service. I don't know how different that is from the American system, but you go and see a general practitioner before you see anybody else. If you need to see someone else, you are referred by your GP or your general practitioner.
Same here.
Yeah. So I went to see my GP and I talked to him and I said, look, I'm really, really concerned that I've got this weakness going on, and I just don't really know what could be behind it, and what do you think might be going on? So he decided that he would examine me, and when he examined me, he kind of prodded me and poked me as carefully as doctors have to, and I went, ouch, and he said that shouldn't hurt. So he said, right, I'm going to send you for a scan. And this was going to be a scan of my uterus. He was concerned there was something going on in my uterus that shouldn't be. They sent me off for a scan. And at the same time, he also sent me off for blood tests, because clearly he needed to make sure, needed to see what was going on. So I went off for blood tests and I went off for my scan, which was an ultrasound. And the ultrasound revealed that I had what we call a uterine polyp. A uterine polyp is a benign growth in the uterus, but it can cause pain and it can cause excessive menstrual bleeding and things like that, which I had in the past and had ignored completely because, avoiding the doctor as always. So having had the scan, I went back to see the GP to find out what the results were of the blood test that he'd done. Now, the day that I went to see him, the words B12 came to my mind. And I think the Lord was speaking to me and saying B12. So when I went back to see the GP, I said, okay, so they found I've got a uterine polyp, and what did you find in the blood tests? And, you know, everything seemed, as far as I know, everything was actually normal, apart from the usual low iron, which I've had off and on for many years. So I said to him, do you think this leg weakness could be B12 deficiency? And he said, well, your serum B12 levels are perfectly normal, so it can't be that. So I went away. I was due to go and have a second scan done because they like to do 2 at different times in a woman's cycle just to see what they're looking at, which is fair enough. So I went away and I did a little bit, because a little bit of researching, because this B12 idea just wouldn't go away. I needed to do some research. And I started to dig, and the internet is a wonderful resource full of amazing websites that will help you with things like this. And as I was looking into B12, it became very obvious to me that I had a huge B12 deficiency. And that this was something that, what was interesting to me is how difficult it was for so many people to get a diagnosis, because doctors look at serum levels, but they're ignorant of all the other aspects to it because they're not taught about things like this. When it comes to nutrients and deficiencies, most GPs don't get much training on this subject. So it can be very difficult for them to understand that there is a problem when you're showing up symptomatically, but not in your blood tests. So I went back to see my GP, and I was able to produce documents. I was able to produce what we would say peer-reviewed medical journal documents, which he would be able to read and completely understand and respect. We're not talking somebody's blog post here or something from Wikipedia. We're talking genuine medical journal information that he would be able to accept as you know, useful and helpful. So I said to him, look, this is what I've brought. We need to have a chat about this. Sorry to be a nuisance, you know, that kind of thing. And we talked through the issues of B12. Now, he was very open and he was very willing to listen and to read what I sent him. So in the end, I sent him a load of links by email, which he went through. And I was able to get that diagnosis in spite of not having an obvious clinical sign that he could say, you have got this notable sign in your blood, or you've got this, that, and the other. I was able to say, these are the symptoms, and can we please do something about it now? So this is one of those situations where I was able to get what we call a therapeutic trial of injections, because B12 is best injected if you have a deficiency. The body's able to absorb it more effectively. And so I was able to get not only a therapeutic trial of injections, I was able to be trained to self-inject, which none of the nurses in the GP practice had ever done before. I was able, once I'd had the first, I think probably after the first week, my balance improved so much that frankly, I hadn't even realized how bad my balance had been. When you live on your own, you don't notice that you're actually swerving to avoid bumping into your own furniture or into doorways, things like that. You don't notice it. It's such a gradual decline. Vitamin B12 deficiency causes all sorts of symptoms. Loss of balance is only one of them. For some people, it's cognitive decline. So some people will get diagnosed with dementia, for example, and they don't have it. They have B12 deficiency. So it's one of those things. It's a very, very serious thing to have and very difficult to get a diagnosis. I was also able to get prescribed the maximum amount that the UK medical system will allow, and to go away with that and self-inject. So I was actually injecting every other day. This went on for, well, it went on for as long as I needed it to.
That's an intramuscular shot, isn't it?
It's an intramuscular shot, yes.
Yeah,
yes, and
those are very painful.
They can be, yes. Yes. I don't like doing it, but I still have to do it. But it's to be in a position where I was able to receive that treatment, which is, I mean, there are people out there in Britain, it's so difficult to get this treatment. It's not available over the counter. In the United States, I understand you can buy vitamin B12 over the counter for self-injection. And here in Ukraine, you can also buy it over the counter for self-injection. But in Britain at the moment, that's not the case. And so if you suspect that you have a deficiency, there are no options unless you want to. I mean, some people do have it shipped in from abroad because they can't get it in Britain. But to be able to not only have that therapeutic trial of injections, but then to be able to have prescribed the maximum amount, to be able to go away and, do the self-injecting, having been taught how to do it. I view that as a very profound move of God. I view that as what we would say being given favor in someone else's sight. And it's such an important thing. There are so many people in Britain who are not able to get that treatment, but I was able to get that treatment. And that was incredibly important, and still is, that I'm able to do that here, but obviously not under the medical service. So whilst that was all going on, the polyp situation remained. Now, this is a very different kind of issue, because obviously having had the polyp spotted, which I knew nothing about, I was then put in the position where the next thing was going to be what is referred to as a minor surgery, which is hysteroscopy. They go in with a scope. It's like having keyhole surgery, but without the keyhole, right? So it's supposed to be very simple. And as is so typical with the NHS, I was sent an appointment. And a few days later, I got another letter cancelling the first appointment. And then I was sent another appointment, which I think the second one I actually couldn't do, and I had to cancel it. Then they sent me another appointment. Then they wrote to me and cancelled that one. And it got to the point where, this was like a merry-go-round. This went on for months and months and months. And I was just, in the end, I had a moment where I looked to the Lord and I said, I think you're trying to tell me something. And I said, Lord, if you're willing to deal with this, I'm willing to leave it to you. I have no desire to be wheeled in on a trolley in an NHS hospital and have this thing done. If you're happy to deal with it, I'm happy to leave it with you. And he said, I will. So the appointments were cancelled. And I said, okay, I'm just going to leave this in your hands. I wasn't in pain. I wasn't in noticeable pain at that point. And time went on, and it was probably about 14 months later that I started to have pain. Started to notice I was in pain.
Those benign polyps, they can become cancerous over a period.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I was starting to have pain, and I remember praying to the Lord. I was on the floor, on my knees, on my face before the Lord, saying, Lord, please take this pain away. And he said, it's done. I got up from the floor and the pain was gone. And the next month, because these things with women, we have our cycles and things are more or less painful depending on what's going on. The following month, the pain came back again. And there is a thing that happens. God prepares you to do what he wants you to do. He prepares you. He gets you ready. It takes as long as it takes. Right? It's his timing, because he knows you're the material that he made, and he knows how long it takes to get you ready to do what. Yeah. So that following month, I was in pain again. I got down on the floor and I said, Lord, I don't remember exactly what I said, but I'll sort of, give you an idea of what I prayed. But I said, Lord, you know, I fully understand that you had every right to close my womb with this polyp, because a polyp usually would mean that a woman would not be able to get pregnant. It usually has that effect. I said, I completely accept that that is your right to do that, because I know the life that I've led. And this, you know, this was something that, you know, was absolutely your right to do that. And I said, so it's absolutely your right to leave it there if that's what you want to do. And I completely respect that, totally and utterly. I said, I just ask that you take the pain away. And he said, I will. Now I sat there, and when the Lord says I will, in my experience, that means not right now. And no, I still carried on in pain. And it was probably a couple of days later, I started spotting. And it was not the right time for that. And I thought, what's going on? It's a bit concerning. And here we get to the TMI warning, because that's not very nice. But I actually thought I'd passed a clot. And when I looked, there was the polyp. And he had actually completely, cleanly, surgically removed that from my body. It had been cut cleanly. And not only did the Lord perform the miracle of removing it, but he actually showed me so that I got to see it, because sometimes these things, well, I mean, he could have just had it shrivel up and disappear and I would never have known. But he showed that to me. And I was absolutely astonished. It was an absolute miracle that he performed that day. Totally and utterly awe-inspiring. And of course, once that had been removed and my body had had a few hours or a day or so to heal, as it were, from that experience, no pain, absolutely fine, everything completely resolved.
That's amazing.
Absolutely amazing.
It shouldn't be amazing, but the thing about it is, we have such miracles happen to us probably often. It's just that we don't often get the evidence of it like you.
No. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think, you know, those two happening at the same time, such interesting experiences, and showing so many ways in which the Lord worked, because I didn't know that the polyp was there. If I hadn't gone to see my GP, and if he hadn't thought to examine me, I never would have known, because because I don't, you know, I avoid doctors, so why would I ask?
Sure.
So, you know, he not only revealed it, but gave me favor with the GP to get the B12 treatment. He delayed the hysteroscopy treatment, the minor surgery, which apparently is not so minor for anyone who's had it. Apparently it's pretty horrible.
They like
what's that, sorry?
They like you to think that it's a simple outpatient thing and you're going to go home. You'll be at work again the next day. But anytime you're inside there doing something like that, taking something out, it's dangerous.
Yeah, and very, very painful.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that's, you know, very important to understand. These things are very, very painful. So he delayed that in order to indicate something to me. He spoke to me. He waited and revealed his sovereignty in delaying that. And of course, prepared me to repent of my past. And instead of asking him to take it away, I acknowledged his right to put it there. And then he took it away. Absolutely amazing. Well, so he performed a miracle.
I don't know that I've ever heard that being phrased in such a way that acknowledging his ability and authority to put it there.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. When we think about stories in the Old Testament where the Lord closed women's wombs, and a polyp will do that. I mean, there's lots of things that will do that. You know, any woman listening has probably heard of various different conditions that will prevent a woman from becoming pregnant, and a polyp is one of those things.
Yes.
Absolutely amazing. God gave me favor. Very important thing that he didn't just give me favor with my GP, but he maintained that favor. Interestingly enough, when lockdown happened last year, there was a big hoo-ha about vitamin B12 patients. Almost everybody who was being given vitamin B12 was there, the number of injections they were getting was reduced dramatically. And for most patients, that was absolutely devastating because their health is, is just absolutely dependent on receiving these treatments. And I had that discussion with my GP, and he wanted to reduce what I was having, but amazingly, that just never happened. It just never got reduced. And every time I needed needles and syringes, I was able to get them. So it was just one of those things where, again, the Lord provided. And, this is very much this, it's an interesting thing that here we've got this issue of B12 deficiency. Now, at this point, the Lord has not removed that from me. To my knowledge, I still have that need, and I do still inject, and I know that I do still need that treatment. I'm not sure why that is, why sometimes something is completely healed, and in other situations that's not the case. I've had experiences in the past where I've been ill and I've prayed and the Lord has said, go to A&E. I had to go to the accident emergency because I was going down with sepsis. It wasn't a case of, stay here. It was a case of go to A&E, go and get the, whatever it was antibiotics that I needed. So we must always stick close to the Lord when it comes to our health. I've had so many experiences over the years where the Lord has revealed different things in different ways. Another time in my life, I was suffering from terrible depression. And I would go through this, I described it as cyclical depression. And it wasn't related to my cycle as a woman, it was cyclical depression. I would be okay for a bit, and then I would sink and I would feel awful and depressed, and I wouldn't be able to cope. And I would drag myself slowly back out of that, and then I would go through it again. And it was just this endless thing. And I remember praying about it, and the Lord said to me, selenium. And so it was very much, literally, it was a case of, I sat down with the Lord and I prayed and I asked him how much I needed to take. And he was able to reveal to me that I needed to start with a low dose and build it up. And the dose that I ended up taking was a very, very large dose. But as soon as I actually started to increase that treatment and got close to that level and got to that level, that depression just went away, And so the Lord always has the answer. What's that, sorry?
Selenium for depression.
Yes. And I think that the reason was because selenium is necessary for the conversion of thyroid hormones in the body. And so if you have a deficiency of selenium, your body doesn't convert, and therefore your thyroid seems to be less effective than it is. It's putting the stuff out, but your body is not able to convert it properly. And that maybe was what was going on. But again, it was the Lord's revelation, and I was able to solve a problem. And another very important one was it's a book by a chap called Stanley Rosenberg. He wrote a book I think it's called Accessing the Power of the Vagus Nerve. And the vagus nerve is it's a nerve that wanders throughout your body. It's actually connected, as far as I know, to all of your organs. It's part of your central nervous system and is connected to all your organs. And if we're stressed, then we get stuck in what's known as a sympathetic, the sympathetic branch, I think it's known as. So we feel stressed, we don't digest well, we're more anxious, and we need to shift into the parasympathetic, which is the rest and digest. And so there are these exercises in that book. And again, I mean, that was an amazing thing. Just pressing into the Lord, pressing in. I spent years seeking an answer to my anxiety. And that book was one of the fundamental things that really made that shift for me and made it possible. I remember going through the sale of my house and being incredibly stressed and not having the level of stress that I had before once I started doing those exercises. And again, I sat with the Lord and worked out how I needed to do these, how many days I needed to do them every day, and then reducing from that until my vagus nerve was properly toned and I was actually much, much better. These are things here. The Lord always has the answer, and we must always seek him when we have a problem.
Okay, do you get these clues all the time, or are these special times?
For me, there have been, I think one of the key things, and it's a very important thing for anyone who listens to this show. As I say, the Lord always has the answer. So if you're not getting a result, you need to keep pressing into the Lord, because he always has the answer. Always. Keep pressing in, keep praying, keep asking, keep trusting, keep walking in faith, keep listening. Take time to sit in silence with him and listen, because it's so important that we rely on him. And actually, let me just grab my Bible.
Okay.
Because in 2 Kings chapter 1, let's just go there. Because this is such an important story for us in our walk with the Lord when it comes to health. Really, really important that we don't.
Be an everyday thing. I mean, take it to Elohim.
Always
get an answer. Yeah. If you don't get an answer right away, it's because you're still not listening.
Yeah. Or there's a time issue, or as I said in that testimony, there is something that you need to acknowledge that is God's right. It's very important that we always.
That is important.
Yeah, really important. So in the book of in 2 Kings chapter 1, we have the story of Ahaziah, and he fell through a lattice and was injured. And instead of going to God, he sent messengers to inquire of Beelzebub. All right. And because of that, God said, no, you're not going to be healed. Right. And this is something that we need to remember. It's very important that we always remember to seek the Lord first. Seek the Lord first. Because I've been, as I say, I've been told to go to the doctor. It's not that you never need to go to the doctor. It's that you need to make God your great physician first. First and foremost. Who does he want you to go to? Does he want you to go and see anybody? Does he want you to change something in your lifestyle? Does he want you to change your diet or give up something that you're having that you shouldn't have? I've recently given up sugar again. Now, sugar is one of those things. And I'm sure I'm sure people who are going to listen to this are just going to be like, yeah, sugar. Many, many times in my life, I've given up sugar for long periods of time. If I don't have sugar, I don't want sugar. But if I have sugar, I want sugar. And I started having sugar again probably sometime last year. I don't recall exactly when it was, but probably around the time that I put my house on the market. Because, I knew it was going to be a stressful time. And when you're under stress, a bar of chocolate or a piece of cake is a very appealing thing. Yes. Yeah. It's one of those things, And so I had been on sugar, as it were. I'd had sugar for something around a year, I would say, around that time. I can't remember prior to that, but yeah. And it got to the point where I thought, I really, really need to stop again. When I first came to Ukraine, it was a case of, well, I wanted to try all the things, because you do, don't you? You want to try things. So that was fine and lovely, but there comes a point where you have to start thinking, my health is not going to improve if I don't give up sugar. So, and I just remember I have these moments sometimes with the Lord where I remember this is a few weeks ago. I had one of those moments where I was just thinking to myself, I really don't know what to do. And the Lord just kind of said, yes, you do. It's like, oh, yeah, actually, I do know what to do. I just don't want to do it. I don't want to give up sugar. Well, I finally got to that point and I gave up sugar. And of course, I'm completely fine now that I'm not having it. It's just, as always, I don't want it if I don't have it. But it's one of those things, making that shift is something that involves, again, seeking the Lord.
What kind of
what I need to do.
Have on sugar? What do you get from that is detrimental to you?
Well, I am a middle-aged woman who is not the slimmest. And so I know that shall we say, I would probably be counted as pre-diabetic in English terms. And it's one of those things, you can carry on plowing the same furrow to your doom if you want to, or you can change. It's a choice. And that's one of the things that we also need to remember with the Lord, is that sometimes he's going to tell you to do things and it is up to you to actually do them.
So for you, you were on the edge of diabetes?
I think so. Yeah.
And
yeah, I think so.
How did that affect, if you don't mind me asking, how did that affect your body?
That's interesting, because I had no diagnosis. It's not like I was, it's not like I've had a doctor say to me, oh, you need to do something about this. But I was kind of on the threshold of it in previous blood tests that I'd had in England some time ago. And that was when I wasn't having sugar. And so I knew that I wasn't doing myself any good having sugar, because as we get older, and particularly if we're a little overweight, we become insulin resistant. And that means your body's putting out insulin out, but your cells are not responding to it. And so you've got higher levels of blood sugar than you should have, and it's not going where it needs to go because your body's not reacting to it right. And it's a reversible condition. You have to actually make the decision to, for example, increase exercise, cut sugar, change your diet. I've actually reduced carbs quite considerably, and that's definitely improving my health.
If you're not eating sugar, what else is there?
Well, this is it. And this is one of the challenges, of course. We have to, it's one of the comments that's often made about getting rid of sugar out of your diet is, well, there are artificial sweeteners, you could have those. But if you're eating things that have artificial sweeteners in, you're actually only continuing your sweet tooth. You're actually convincing yourself that one day, okay, so I'm having artificial sweetness today, but your body also can react apparently by raising blood sugar, even if you've only had something that's artificially sweet.
Okay.
Because actually your body is reacting as if it's sugar. This apparently is actually it's one of those things. It's all in your mind. Your body's responding to what your mind thinks it is, and so that in itself, as I say, if I don't have sweet things, I mean, I do occasionally. I do have a little bit of dried fruit. I have a little bit of dried fruit every day, so I might have a couple of dried apricots or a dried fig, which are fairly sweet. But those are the only things I allow myself, and that is obviously good for digestion and all the rest of it. And you can't exactly get carried away with those because that's not going to be good. But cakes and sweets and things like that, no, don't have it, don't miss it.
I would love to have a big piece of chocolate cake now. I mean, you push the button here.
Sorry.
Go ahead and mention some more.
It's, these are the things. This is, we each have our own individual medical situations, our own individual issues and problems. And there are so many different causes that we have to face. I have sought the Lord with issues and I have received deliverance. I have sought the Lord with issues and been told to go to see the doctor. I've sought the Lord with issues and been told that I need to either change my diet or take a supplement, or being reminded to take a supplement that I've been forgetting to take, because that's another thing. We have to, this thing of consistency is also important, that we don't just need to do something, but we need to keep remembering to do it for as long as we need to do it. Our relationship with the Lord, it's important for our health that when we seek him, that we seek him with an open mind and an open heart to receive what he wants us to do and the healing that he wants to give us. And he, as I say, he always has the answer. And I spent years seeking him, and bit by bit, piece by piece, he restored me. I mean, that's really a big part of my testimony, because as I said in the previous show, we're talking, it was 2010 when I was converted, and it has been a long road of these sort of various things where the Lord has stepped in and said, well, this is what you need to do. You need to take this supplement. You need to take it this way. You need to, the selenium was particularly interesting to me, because that one was, this is what you need to do. You need to take this and you need to, increase it. And it worked amazingly. If I'd gone to the doctor with that, I would have been put on some horrible pharmaceutical medication that would never have done any good.
Okay, now can I change the subject just a little bit?
Yes, you can.
All right. I've had the opportunity a couple of times in my life to study in England. And the last time I was there, I was at Cliff College up near Manchester, and living in a dorm there for a couple of weeks with the World Methodist Assembly. And for breakfast, listen to this custom. Tell me if it's the normal thing. Every breakfast, no matter what you were eating, they brought out pictures of custard. And yeah, custard. Pictures of custard, or they call it ambrosia sometimes. And we were not used to such things as that. And they tasted so good that if you're having eggs or bangers or fish or whatever that morning, you just poured this stuff all over your breakfast. Now, is that the way it's done there typically?
So did you say you were in Manchester?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the north.
Okay.
And I was brought up in the south of England, and we definitely don't have custard for breakfast in the south of England. I've never heard of that before. That's fascinating to me.
Okay.
But yes, I mean, custard is very much an English thing, but usually for pudding after dinner, on something, stodgy and sweet, steamed pudding or something.
If there was a sugar problem among children, if they are growing up with a custom like that,
well,
and they're going to miss that an awful lot if they go anyplace else.
Yes, and I mean, when I think of how our diets have changed, when I think of the Second World War and the rationing that Britain had, and so it's said that was the time when Britain was the healthiest, when we had limited amounts of fats and meat and so on. Whether that's true or not, certainly our health has not improved since we have had an abundance of processed foods, because those really weren't available. Back in the 1940s and 50s, you went down the high street, you went to the baker to buy bread, and it was proper bread. You went to the butcher for your meat and the greengrocer for your vegetables and fruit. These are the things that every housewife did. And all of a sudden, in probably the late 1970s, early 1980s, we had supermarkets and we had all this stuff in tins and packets and, this processed food, buying food that normally a housewife would make. It hasn't done any good to our health. Because so often, of course, this low fat craze as well is another issue, because every time these companies have reduced fat in food, they tend to add more sugar or other sweeteners. So that hasn't done us any good either. So yes, England's health is not great. Mostly, I think, because women are out at work, not at home cooking meals from scratch. Because when you cook a meal properly, it should have all of its nutrients intact, because it's not come out of a can or a packet or whatever.
I found some of this custard this week. Was it this week? End of last week.
Yeah.
It's been years since I was in Manchester. It's been years, but I remember that all this time and thinking how good that was, even on sausages. And those days I was still eating pork. So that's been a long.
Oh my goodness, yes. Well, exactly. Yes, I was brought up eating pork as well. So was this Ambrosia, the brand?
It's Devon brand.
Devon brand, right? Yeah.
And I found some in the supermarket, so I brought it home. And yesterday for breakfast, I made some Jamaican cassava bread. And I opened that custard and I poured it on everything yesterday. And
there we go. Was it good?
Ambrosia. And what I did with the rest of it that was left in the can, I threw it away.
It wasn't as good as you remembered.
It was every bit as good as I remember.
All right.
I poured this all over breakfast here and loved every bit of it. And I thought, I will get addicted to this.
Yeah.
And it's full of sugar, of course, and cream and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Sugar is one of those things. It has an effect on us, whereby if you have a little bit, then maybe you want a bit more. And over time, you tend to eat sweeter and sweeter things. Now, if somebody offered me a bar of chocolate right now, I'd be like, blah, blah, blah. No, thank you, because it's too sweet. And I was never a fan of sweet things. But if you eat sugar, then you'll want to eat sugar. It's one of those things. It has that effect on me. I don't know if it's the same for everybody, but when I don't have it, I don't.
Yeah, exactly. I've been off of it at different times too.
Yeah.
Because I'm, I guess, pre-diabetic, and I think about everybody my age is supposedly pre-diabetic. But when you get off of it for a couple of days, you don't crave it as much. I mean, it's like an addiction that you go through withdrawal. It's hard to get off of it, but then when you're off of it, you really don't have those cravings anymore.
No, and it's partly because it causes your blood sugar to spike. Then, of course, you have to produce lots of insulin, your blood sugar crashes, and then you want some more because all of a sudden you're feeling very hungry, and you feel the need to get your blood sugar back up again, and it's all part of this cycle of peaks and troughs of blood sugar and insulin, and of course it's not good for your system. And so I feel better not having it, definitely.
So much for my interruption then.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So just sort of to round this out, I think it's important for us to think about all the different ways that the Lord moves for us. Hearing those words, B12, then being reminded to go and look and do that bit of research, So, you know, there are times when I've had information just, as it were, pop up in front of me on the internet, just what I needed to know, just when I needed to know it. The Lord, when we're seeking the Lord, we need to be open to receive the information that we need. And then, no, we've got some information. Now we can take that to the Lord in prayer. And we can say, actually, is this what I need to do? Because that kind of seems about right. And it's that thing of seeking the Lord, pressing into the Lord, trusting in the Lord to provide us with answers, as he has so often with me over the years.
Me too.
And it's just such a vital thing to keep seeking him. You know, he is a God who restores. He is a God who loves us and corrects us, and that's so incredibly important too, is that we don't just seek. It's not just what you can get the Lord to do for you, because that's, at the end of the day, that's up to him what he does for you. It's that thing of, you know, where am I wrong? What do I need to change? How can I be a better daughter to you? You know, let me be the clay and you be the potter, and you change me. I'm yours to do that with, and surrendering yourself to him. You know, what do I need to do? What do I need to change in order to walk in better health? You know, this thing of the rod and the staff. And I remember somebody explaining this, that the rod is to whack the sheep on the bottom to keep them going forward. And the staff is that one that we often see that has that crook shape. And that's for hoiking the sheep out of the ditch when they've fallen in. And we need both of those. We need God to rescue us, but we also need God to correct us. And that, again, is part of that message of healing, very much.
But in the hooking of a sheep, it's not a matter of crooking that sheep's neck and dragging the sheep out. There has to be a cooperation with the sheep.
That's so true.
That's just an incentive to get up and do something.
Yeah, that's very true.
Cooperation there.
Yeah. I mean, the Lord will step in and he will help you. Whether that's a miracle, as I've had at times, an absolute miracle where something, as I say, I got up off the floor, the pain was completely taken away. And then to have that polyp removed so perfectly, so cleanly, and so clearly. I mean, what an absolutely amazing thing to have experienced. This incredible God. I mean, it's just what a wonderful thing, and all glory to him for everything that he's done. Yeah. And everything that he has enabled me to do, because that's the other thing. When we need to do something, then sometimes we also have to rely on the Lord to help us, to strengthen us, because we're weak and we fail and we fall by the wayside. So we sometimes need help just to continue to do the things that we know that we need to do, whether that's giving up sugar, whether that's taking more exercise, whether it's taking a supplement or taking a medication, whether it's, you know, whatever it might be. We seek the Lord. We need the Lord. He is our great physician. We rely on him. We rely on our Messiah. And these are just experiences that I've had, and I thought that they would be helpful to people to hear. And
brings back all kinds of thoughts in my mind. Well, I don't want to go into my story much, but I get criticized a lot because I take pharmaceuticals, and a lot of them, because of the condition I've had for the last 40 years actually. And I spoke 40 years ago to Elohim, and I said, how can I do this? And what I got back was, do it sacramentally. Take that medicine, make it blessed, take it as though it were a sacrament, as though it were something like the body of Messiah. I'm taking about 20 a day. They're difficult to eat, but look, I've been alive for 30 years now that I shouldn't have been alive. So I've been blessed with that. It's a matter, it doesn't make any difference what the therapeutic agent is. It has a lot more to do with your Elohim and what he instructs you to do and your obedience to it.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had experiences where the Lord has had me do communion. And doing communion, whether it's once a week or however often, again, this is a healing thing and it can provide healing. So there are so many different ways that the Lord can direct us to what we need for our healing. My example here of those B12 injections, at the moment, I still need them. Will that always be the case? Will that situation change? That I do not know. The world is changing. We're in we're moving into more and more difficult times. And something that we also perhaps should consider is that sometimes we may have difficulty obtaining what we now need. And again, we must rely on the Lord either to find a way for us to obtain what we need or to make it so that we don't need those things that we have needed. Trusting in the Lord, walking with the Lord, pressing into him in daily prayer. It has made such a difference to me hugely for my health over the years. And it's been such a blessing.
Thank you for the testimony.